began off the coast of Yemen. A commercial vessel under U.S. protection, sailing into a kill zone it never saw coming. The Houthis were ready. Fast boats, heavy weapons, and a plan built for speed and shock. From miles away, Seahawk crews scrambled, racing the clock toward a firefight already in motion. What unfolded next would test every second, every shot, and every command. As the U.S. Navy continued its patrol through the tense waters of the southern Red Sea, the mission was going smoothly, until everything changed in an instant. The Seahawk pilots had no idea that a group of Houthi fast attack boats, operating near the port city of Hodeida, was targeting a high-value commercial vessel under U.S. protection. Their assault began with a salvo of guided missiles and a barrage of machine gun fire, all aimed directly at the Maersk Hangzhou, a Singapore-flagged container ship. At that moment, the vessel was about 55 nautical miles off the coast of Al-Hudaida, Yemen. The Houthi tactic was simple. Close in fast, launch a rapid assault, and seize control before the crew could send out a distress call. It seemed like the perfect plan. But there was one critical thing they didn't see coming. But without the U.S. Navy's intervention, what could have happened? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't blink. The counterstrike is about to get even more intense. 2 U.S. Navy MH-60R Seahawk helicopters, nicknamed Romeos, launched from the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower and USS Gravely, with the call signs Lancer 71 and Lancer 72. Their mission: patrol, monitor, and respond to any unusual activity on the open sea. At first, it seemed like just another routine patrol, until everything flipped in an instant. Instead of silence, the Seahawks arrived to find an active assault already underway. The Maersk Hangzhou had sent out a distress signal the moment the armed Houthi boats came into view. On board were private security contractors from the Trident Group. As the Houthi vessels closed within 6 nautical miles, the team rushed to defensive positions. But they were badly outgunned, armed with just a few M4 rifles and M240 machine guns, facing off against rockets, PKMs, and RPGs. They were completely outmatched. The Houthi boats were closing in fast, dangerously fast. Armed with PKMs and thermobaric RPGs, their firepower could rip through both steel and flesh. The Maersk Hangzhou stood no chance. Its security team only had rifles, far too weak to hold off a heavy weapons assault. Less than a mile remained. The raid was seconds from launching. Then, a distress call pierced the air. 2 MH-60R Seahawks received the order and immediately launched, pushing to their max speed, 160 knots. Distance to target, 26 nautical miles. ETA, 9 minutes. Too late, unless they acted now. The Houthis were seconds away from boarding, but the U.S. Navy was coming, and they were coming fast. Time was running out, fast. At their current speed, the Seahawks would need 9 minutes to reach the scene, but by then, it'd be 4 or 5 minutes too late. The Houthis would already be on deck. There was no room for hesitation. The pilots had to act, strike first, strike hard, and stop the enemy before they made contact. At 6:31 a.m., the helicopter's radar locked onto 4 fast-moving targets. Iranian-made Boghamar attack boats. Each measured 7 to 10 meters, charging toward the Maersk Hangzhou at 50 knots in tight formation, their intentions clear. On board each vessel, 3 to 4 Houthi fighters, armed with PKMs, RPGs, and AK-47s, more than enough to overwhelm an unarmed cargo ship. 2 of the boats were carrying something far more dangerous: Taba, 14 thermobaric RPGs. These weren't just rockets, they were ship killers. Each warhead could penetrate up to 300 millimeters of armor, the kind used on tanks. The Maersk Hangzhou? It had only 25 millimeters of steel plating. One direct hit, and the ship would be torn apart. But firepower wasn't the only threat. The entire Houthi strike group was networked. Each boat, equipped with Starlink, was transmitting real-time data back to a command center in Hodeida. They weren't just attacking, they were coordinating with precision. UAV feeds, coastal spotters, satellite links. The Houthis had a clear view of the battlefield. Every movement was timed, calculated. This wasn't a random raid, it was a strategic strike, and time was running out for the Maersk Hangzhou. This wasn't a surprise raid, it was a coordinated assault, calculated down to the second, rooted in Iran's doctrine of asymmetric warfare. The Maersk Hangzhou wasn't armed, but she wasn't blind. Her security team was in position, fingers tight on the triggers. At 1,800 meters, the first shots rang out. From hardened positions at the stern and port side, M240B machine guns opened up in suppressive fire. One boat was hit. Smoke poured out as it swerved and fell behind. But the other three kept coming, unfazed. Formation tight, speed relentless. In seconds, the range closed to just 600 meters. They were now in RPG range. And then, like a thunderclap from the sky, it began. The defenders held the line, just barely. One Houthi boat took a direct hit, its rudder destroyed, spinning out and drifting off course. But the others kept charging. From Boat 2, an RPG screamed through the air. It sliced the wind, drew a white-hot line across the sky, and exploded just 3 meters from Maersk Hangzhou's bridge. Any closer, and the command center would have been obliterated. No rudder, no orders, no escape. The crew braced for the worst. And then, the sky roared. The Seahawks dove in, engines screaming, guns blazing. The response had arrived. Cavalry just in time. Thanks to the security team's grit, the Houthi boats were forced to hold at 600 meters, close enough to fire RPGs, but not close enough to board. That short delay, paid in blood and bullets, gave Lancer 71 and 72, just enough time to close the gap. By 6:39, the Seahawks were only 1 mile out. The order came through. Weapons free. Time to pick targets and strike hard. Beneath each chopper, the AN/APS-153V radar spun, the electronic eyes of the battlefield. It had detected all 4 boats from 42 kilometers out, but sea clutter made it hard to lock in. With 32 contacts on screen, the pilots switched to narrow pulse mode, firing bursts of energy just 0.5 to 1 microsecond long. That shift cut through the noise, isolating real threats, tracking speed, heading, even shape. The counterattack had begun. The radar gave the Romeos a clear picture of where to aim. With cutting-edge tech, the Seahawks didn't need to guess. They just locked on and acted. The AN/APS-153 came equipped with a secret weapon, MTI mode, the moving target indicator. As enemy boats moved, the radar picked up subtle shifts in reflected waves, a Doppler shift, just like how a siren changes pitch as it passes by. But instead of sound, this was raw radio energy. MTI confirmed the targets were moving, and that's when ISAR kicked in, Inverse Synthetic Aperture Radar. It used those Doppler shifts to paint a crystal-clear image of each threat in real time. The pilots didn't need eyes on. The radar had already done the seeing for them. At that moment, the Houthi boats were no longer just blips on a screen. They were identified, locked, and marked for fire. The Romeos were ready. It was time to strike. The Seahawks were locked and loaded, each side armed with a GAU 21.50 caliber machine gun, manned and ready to unleash. Capable of firing 1,100 rounds per minute, these weren't just bullets, they were armor-piercing, incendiary, and deadly. But the Houthis struck first. At exactly 6:40, the silence shattered. PKM machine guns lit up the sky, ripping into the air around the helicopters. Some rounds came within 15 meters. Too close. They made the first move, and it was the last mistake they'd ever make. The Seahawks dropped to just 150 feet, fast and aggressive, diving headfirst into the fight. The sky flared with countermeasures. Flares and chaff burst behind them in blinding streaks of light. 12 MJU-68B flares burned at 2,200 degrees Celsius, hanging like fireballs for nearly 3 seconds. 24 RR-180 chaff bundles scattered like metallic dust, scrambling any radar-guided threats. No missiles came, but that didn't matter. The pilots weren't waiting. They were charging in, and the guns were about to roar. Everything erupted in an instant. 0641, Lancer 71 locked onto Boat 1. The gunner pulled the trigger. 3 sharp bursts of .50 cal rounds tore through the hull, ripped into the engine, then ignited the fuel tank. Fire exploded. The boat vanished beneath the waves in under 45 seconds.
No time to watch it sink. Lancer 71 banked left, eyes now on Boat 2. A single shot clipped the rudder. The boat veered off. The gunner unleashed a 3-second burst. Steel shattered. Water flooded in. 6:42. Boat 2 rolled and capsized. The Seahawks pivoted to Boat 3. Gunfire rained down from both sides. Armor-piercing rounds ripped into the hull below the waterline. The crew tried to abandon ship, but it was too late. 6:44. Boat 3 disappeared into the sea. 3 targets, 3 lethal hits, all in less than 3 minutes. The sea was smoking, and the battle had only just begun. Boat 3 was gone. The Seahawks quickly turned to the final target. Boat 4 was still moving, but barely. Lancer 71 opened fire. Then Lancer 72 joined in. 50 caliber rounds poured down on the fleeing vessel. After watching its allies be destroyed, the last Houthi boat made the only move left: retreat. It veered northwest, limping through smoke and incoming fire. No return shots, no more fight. But the Seahawks didn't chase. They weren't there for vengeance. They were there to protect. Hangzhou still needed guarding, and the skies above her remained locked and ready. In less than 7 minutes, 2 Seahawk helicopters unleashed a storm of firepower. 3 Houthi boats destroyed, nearly 1,800 rounds fired with deadly precision. The sea was littered with wreckage, smoke still hanging in the air. But for the Houthis, the nightmare was only beginning. This wasn't some random skirmish. It was a deliberate strike on a US-protected commercial vessel. CENTCOM wasn't going to let it slide. Sinking a few boats was a tactical win, but not a strategic message. A decision was made. The Houthis would feel the full weight of American resolve. This wasn't just retaliation. It was a warning. 8 hours after the Houthis opened fire, the US responded with steel and fire. USS gravely closed in on the Yemeni coast. Its target, Houthi coastal radar stations, the same ones that guided the assault on Hangzhou. No warning, no hesitation. Its 5-inch Mark 45 Mod 4 gun roared to life, firing relentlessly. 92 high-explosive shells, each weighing 70 pounds, tore through the air at 2,600 feet per second, striking targets up to 9 miles away with pinpoint accuracy. Gravely moved along the shoreline, unopposed, eliminating radar site after radar site. By nightfall, the counterstrike was complete. Jabal al-Tayr, Al-Mocha, Ras Isa, 3 radar facilities, wiped off the map. The Houthis were now blind, and America was just getting started. For 2 weeks, the Houthis had used those radar stations to track coalition vessels in the Red Sea, silently watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. Now, they're gone, reduced to smoldering rubble under US naval firepower. Drones swept the area. The verdict was clear. 60% of the Houthis' maritime surveillance capability was wiped out in a single strike. But the mission isn't over. This is no longer about defense. Retribution is underway. And the next blow will come from the sky. January 1st. The mission was greenlit. As the sun dipped below the horizon, 4 FA-18E Super Hornets from VFA-131 launched off the deck of the USS Eisenhower. Strapped beneath their wings, a GM-154, Sea Joint Standoff weapons, long-range, precision-guided, bunker-busting payloads. Target, Al-Durahimi Missile Depot, a high-value Houthi weapons facility. Each JSO carried a 500-pound Broach warhead, capable of punching through nearly 4 meters of reinforced concrete. Once inside, it unleashed a jet of molten metal at 14 kilometers per second, vaporizing anything in its path. 6:43 p.m. All 4 missiles hit. The night sky lit up with fireballs. Secondary explosions ripped through munitions. Fuel stores ignited. Intelligence confirmed the aftermath. 18 Qasef drones destroyed. 4 Noor anti-ship missiles eliminated. Multiple guidance and control systems obliterated. 2 Iranian advisors and 12 Houthi militants killed. This wasn't just an airstrike. It was a message. America is no longer just defending. They're now on the hunt. And the Houthis just felt the first blow. Give this video a like if you think the US Navy struck just in time. It was a brutal battle, But the war is far from over. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss what comes next in this unfolding conflict.